Hey everyone, how are you? Today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the new Beauty Blender Bounce Foundation. It looks like this, and I have a sample and I've worn it now for a couple of days and I want to share my thoughts. So if you're interested in hearing about how it worked for my mature, dry, normal type skin, then keep watching. Okay, so let's get into the heart of all this. I was actually going to buy this foundation on my own just because it just sounded so amazing, and I was watching all these great reviews on it. Every now and then I would watch or read one that was maybe, so-so, but that's pretty typical. But I was fortunate and I got a sample of it through this little packet here through Sephora. So some of the cool things about this that I've been reading is, again, it's from Beauty Blender. The structure of the actual jar of foundation is really cool. Now I got a sample, which is actually really cool. So it came inside this little folder. So it has this little foil packet, but on the other side, it has a little piece here that you lift up. And if I lift it up, you'll see, it's a little spout. You kind of push it out there and you get a little bit of foundation, and then you can use this as the palette for your beauty blender or your brush. I used both, and you'll see that in the application video that I will insert at some point along here. When you get the actual true product, it has that really kind of cool piece in the front, plastic piece in the front, which some people have mixed reviews on for good reason, especially the idea of how well can you get it clean. But anyway, it has that little plastic piece in the front that you can then use as a palette, to dip your beauty blender in. I typically just use the back of my hand just because it's there, and I don't know, it just seems to work really well. But anyway, it was very cool in the idea of it. To me, it wasn't coming across as gimmicky, but I could see where some people might say that. So some of the claims for this foundation are that it's supposed to be a liquid, whipped, long-wearing foundation. I think it says for up to 24 hours. It has 32, instead of saying shades, they say blends, right? Beauty Blender. It's supposed to be full coverage. It's supposed to be a velveteen matte finish. And it's supposed to have moisture-boosting hyaluronic acid. So a lot of really cool things, and when I've been watching some different reviews on it, it just looks beautiful. And so anyway, I have given it a test. I'm wearing it right now. Again, the color that I have right now is 3.25. I'm usually in the neutralish, lightish beige kind of color. Like if I see that, that's usually what I kind of go for. So anyway, let me give you a little background if you're new to my channel. And anyway, if you are new to my channel, I'm supposed to always say this in the beginning, and I really don't. Go ahead, and I'd love it if you could subscribe and join the community that we're building here. We really focus on a lot of not just beauty reviews, but kind of some other different lifestyles, some fun different things, travel tips. I'm kind of doing a blended mixture and melting pot of a lot of different things. But I'd love it if you would subscribe, and it's probably important to hit that notification bell, because as much as I'm trying to be really good about uploading at least once a week, I am not always on a consistent schedule just because I'm also working and everything else. So anyway, if you are new to my channel, you might not know a little bit about my skin, which I think is important to hear when we talk about foundation particularly. So obviously I have mature skin, which means it comes with, all those wonderful, fine lines, deeper lines. I also have what I used to have very oily skin. However, I've gone through a lot of acne treatments because I've had a lot of cystic acne over the years, and now I use Retin-A, so I do tend to have a lot more dryness. Matter of fact, I've got a lot of dryness and flakiness that I regularly exfoliate and everything, and have some really good moisturizers that I use. But it tends to be more dry, but I do still sometimes get some little oily areas sometimes in a T-zone, especially during the summer. Of course, right now I've been trying this foundation out during the winter, which is, I think, a really important context to put in there, the whole piece of the puzzle here. So, given that perspective, let me jump into now what I've been thinking about. I'll probably insert at some point me applying the foundation. So again, I was really excited, and sometimes maybe that's a bad thing because you get really hyped up. You're watching all these people like loving this foundation. So I was really expecting to love it right from the start. And I have to say, I loved the idea when it came out. I love the way I was putting it on. I really like using a beauty blender, by the way. And it does work better typically for my skin, because if I start using a brush, I feel like I build up more flakiness. That kind of goes, so and I have a lot of texture to my skin, and I do have a lot of hyperpigmentation, all that. So I do have some stuff to cover. I don't have a huge amount to cover. But if I'm going through the effort of wearing foundation, then I do want it to look good and look nice. But on the other hand here, and I think again these are all important when you think about my thoughts on a foundation, is I don't want to have to work hard. So in other words, I don't want to have to use a primer. I don't want to have to use powder unless it's just so amazing that I feel good about doing that. So all that to say, my first impressions putting it on, I was like, okay, this is kind of going on nicely. And just like if you've watched other reviews also of this foundation, it really did set quickly, but it set with a really nice finish, and it still has a really nice finish. Now, I don't have any powder on because it just set into such a nice satin finish, and it wasn't like transferring at all that I felt like, oh, you know, I'm gonna have to go ahead and put some powder on, especially before I add any kind of bronzer. So no powder, this is just the foundation. I also didn't use any concealer because I like to be able to see how it kind of wears during the day, if it kind of like slowly fades away, or if it fades away in patches, you know, all those kind of pieces there. So again, cleansed skin, moisturized skin, no primer and no powder. You see in the little snapshot, you'll see when I do the demo is that I did half of my face with the Beauty Blender, half with a brush. Again, just like I typically have found, is that the Beauty Blender works better for me because it doesn't disrupt some of the skin flakiness and everything. So I much prefer that, but I really, at first, really liked the finish with the Beauty Blender. Okay, fast forward a little bit. It seemed to do a nice coverage. Within 5 or 10 minutes though, I started really noticing that it really was sinking into the lines and crevices. And I have a lot of dry skin around the edges of my lips, you know, nose area, but especially these lovely kind of areas here. It was just sitting a little bit strangely. And I have to say, did not feel like full coverage at all. It felt more like a medium coverage. So you'll see in the demo part, I actually did apply a little bit more, which then to me started making it look more and more cakey. You know, I just did not quite feel great about it. So I'm gonna stop here now and insert a couple of little times when I've come throughout the day and I kind of checked in quickly, and then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts, which you might already be getting an idea of what I'm already thinking. Okay, just a quick check-in. I just finished putting on the rest of my makeup, and so far I'm a little mixed about my feelings of the foundation. I feel like it feels drying. I like the way that it did kind of finish and feel, you know, like it kind of melded into my skin. However, I do feel like it's kind of emphasizing a lot of my texture on my face. And it feels dry, and I feel like it's really kind of sunk into a lot of my lines. So I'm not sure what I'm going to think about throughout the day. I will check back in and give you my final thoughts, but I did want to give you kind of a look of what it is right now. The color, I think, is very good, so I'm hoping this works out because I really like it and I like the concept of it and everything. But if I had to say right now, I'm not so sure that I really like the look that's given me, and even though it's lightweight, I feel like it's drying on my skin. So I'm hoping this improves over time and that I have a different feeling for it, but I will check in later and let you know.
Okay, a quick check-in. I've had the foundation on. I'm sitting in the parking lot right now just running errands. I've had the foundation on for about 5 hours so far, and I have to say it's itchy feeling. I feel it on my skin, which is so different than what everyone else has said in the reviews. So I don't know. So far I just not thinking I like it, and it just seems like it's kind of sitting into stuff. So I don't know. I'll check back later.
Okay, so you might not be too surprised when my final thoughts are that I'm just not digging this foundation. I wanted to love it so much because it had all these great qualities to it, and it looked beautiful on everyone. From a distance, I feel like I could get away with it, but I'll kind of, you've seen something up close and you can kind of see that it's just not sitting very well. the color is really good for me. So that's disheartening too, because I finally found one that has a really good color for me, but I just don't necessarily like the way it looks. It's bringing out a lot of the texture in my skin, but I want to say one of the biggest downfalls for me is I feel it. I feel this foundation on my skin, which I don't like at all. And when I think about the fact that I don't even have that much on me, I don't have primer, I don't have powder, so it shouldn't be feeling so heavy, but just never felt like it became one with my skin. And I'm very conscious of it. Almost, you heard in one of the clips, it almost feels itchy to me. So it must be something in there that's just not sitting well with my skin. So maybe if I use a primer, it might feel better. But I kind of rewind back to some of my previous comments. I don't like to have to use a primer. If there's some reason I need to use a primer, for example, I know I'm going to have a very, very long day, I'm going to a very special event, those kinds of things, that's okay. But for every day, I don't want to have to be using all of that. So unfortunately, I have to say, I'm so glad I did not buy the foundation. And I mean, I'm so thrilled that they gave such a nice sample, because I've been able to use this several times now. But every time that I've used it, I felt the same way. Like right now, I can't wait to go wash my face and get this foundation off. And like I look in the viewfinder right now and it doesn't look terrible. And I think what I kind of see is I like the color match of it, which I'm not sure if it's really picking up in the video at all. But the fact that it feels so heavy on my skin surprises me based on all the reviews I was hearing about it. But just, it's one of those foundations for me that I can't wait to go wash my face right now. And I certainly don't grab it up thinking, I'm excited to use this foundation. So I'm so sad, because I really, really wanted to love this foundation. So if you've used it and you have any tips to share with me, please do, because like I said, I was just so excited about it. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And please, if you have different types of skin, I might just be some outlier, because the vast majority of feedback and reviews was that this is a lovely, wonderful foundation. And I've heard this from people I highly respect. So I don't know, but for me, it's just not working. And if it does come back and I've figured out some trick to make it work, I will be glad to come back and share that with you. But for right now, I'd love your thoughts on it. I'd love to know if you tried it and if you have any tips, because like I said, I would love to make it work, especially because I really love the color match for me. So anyway, I wanted to make sure I was giving you at least a true and honest, response to this foundation. So please leave any comments, feedback below. I still have another 1 or 2 foundations. I'm into this big foundation thing right now that I don't know. It's just, when you get into these, like, I've got to find the perfect bronzer, I've got to find the perfect hair product, I've got to find the perfect decoration for the corner of my house. When you get into one of those, like, that's really what I'm trying to keep looking for. And until I find the ultimate ones that I really want right now, I'm going to keep trying to look for them. So any thoughts or suggestions, leave them down below. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this has been a good experience. Maybe you've learned something. Maybe I've given you some tidbit, or vice versa, if you can share some other thoughts also with the rest of our community. So I look forward to hearing from all of you, and I hope that you're having great days, afternoons, evenings, and so forth. So until next time, bye.